Joining me now, Axios senior political correspondent and Fox News contributor, Josh Kraushaar. Josh, good to see you this evening. Just what do you make of the vote today for McConnell?
Yeah, Dagan, it wasn't surprising. It was a pretty commanding vote of confidence in Mitch McConnell's leadership, 37-10 within the Republican Senate conference. But, I think Rick Scott was not the ideal challenger either. He is the Republican who led the Senate campaign committee at a time when they may end up losing a seat, or at best not getting back the majority. So, there may have been other Republicans that might have been able to put up a tougher challenge, but it's hard to be the guy who lost the big football game to be asking to get a promotion, to be hired to becoming the party's head coach. And that's what Scott was asking for. And ultimately, there was some dissension within the ranks, but 37 out of 47 Republican senators, that was a pretty commanding showing from Mitch McConnell today.
But from the outside looking in, there's a lot of, and it's not just Scott and McConnell, there's a lot of casting aspersions and assigning blame with what happened during the midterms, and they are not a caucus unified.
No, I mean, we're looking at potential for civil war in many elements of the Republican Party. Rick Scott and Mitch McConnell and their allies attacking each other in public. You've got Kevin McCarthy in the House, who is the favorite to become Speaker, but he's going to have a very narrow majority in all likelihood, and is going to have to deal with the prospect that a few rebels could prevent him from becoming Speaker. And even in the presidential landscape, we know Donald Trump announced his campaign last night, but there are a lot of other Republicans looking to take him on for future leadership of the party. So there is a lot of dissension within the Republican Party ranks. I think, though, that Scott was trying to take advantage of some of the grassroots criticism of Mitch McConnell, but he was not the ideal vehicle for that type of criticism, given that he ultimately was at the top of the party establishment. He was the guy who was tasked with holding, or I should say, winning back the Republican majority in the Senate. And a lot of Republicans were also frustrated with Rick Scott that he wasn't able to accomplish that goal.
Right. I talked to Senator Braun yesterday, and he supported Rick Scott. And the biggest problem and I've raised this issue, there were 19 Republicans who voted for the infrastructure bill in the Senate. Mitch McConnell voted for it. Then there were 17 Republican senators who voted for the CHIPS boondoggle. Mitch McConnell was one of them. No, and Mike Braun said this yesterday, that many Democrats would never vote for anything put up by the Republicans if they controlled the Senate. And at a time when the debt skyrocketed and there's $5 trillion in new borrowing under President Biden, but the Republicans, because of Mitch McConnell and some of his cronies, they co-signed on to at least $1.3 trillion of it. That's really part of what's at issue, and that's policy.
Yeah, I mean, that is where the divide is between the policy and the politics. Mitch McConnell is one of the savvier political operators. And, on those two votes, especially that infrastructure bill, he looked at the polling, which, showed it pretty popular within most of the country. And he thought he wanted to show that Republicans could accomplish some bipartisan goals in the run up to the midterm elections. The challenge for Republicans is that, a lot of their candidates ended up being fairly weak. And McConnell's goal is always to get the majority and then drive the Republican Party's agenda. That's when you're in the most advantageous position. He wants to get the power first, then deal with the policy. And he was very concerned, as you well know, Dagan, about some of the candidates in these key Senate races who, Rick Scott's position was not to get involved in primaries, let the voters ultimately decide in these key primary contests. But that led to a whole lot of weak Republican nominees who ended up squandering the potential for Republicans to get back that majority.
Well, the Republicans should be united around the sleazy tactics of the Democrats, sleazy being my word, the tactics of funding the campaigns of Republican candidates in primaries who they thought would be the least desirable to Republican candidate and give the Democrats a better shot. And that strategy, as garbage as it was, and it's, smells to high heaven, it did work. But you did mention President Trump, and I just wanted to get you to listen to this from last night. He's running 2024.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States. This will not be my campaign. This will be our campaign all together.
Certainly there's political fatigue among the voters. Josh, how does this play out, particularly given the runoff election in Georgia in just a few weeks?
Yeah, Dig, and I think there are a lot of Republicans I talked to in the last 24 hours that would have preferred that Donald Trump wait till after the Georgia Senate runoff before making this presidential announcement. There's a lot of data, a lot of polling suggesting that some of the support in the Republican Party among the conservative grassroots for Donald Trump isn't quite as strong as it was before the midterm elections. And you have a lot of other very talented Republican contenders that may get in this race. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin, Mike Pence, who's doing his book tour right now, that really are trying to get a piece of that Trump pie. So this is it's going to be a very different dynamic in 2023, 2024 going forward. Trump certainly has support from a block of Republican Party voters, but there's going to be a lot more competition, and there's going to be a real debate within the Republican Party on who should be its future leader.
Something I've learned, and I think we probably should have all learned, never underestimate Trump, though. Never underestimate him.
He's got supporters. And look, if everyone goes after Trump and they're fighting for that same slice of the pie, Donald Trump is still very formidable within the Republican Party.
Josh, great to see you. Thank you so much. I'll see you again very soon.
Thanks, Dagan.